Hello, it's Jim Dramatic here, and welcome to my first little mini episode of Series 10. Now, you might be wondering, is this a full podcast? No, not really. It's just some unscripted ramblings by yours truly about each episode of Series 10 and further future series if there is any, Series 11 plus, and may not be other episodes in December. But yes, this is my unscripted ramblings, just going over the first heat of Series 10. Before we actually get to the robots, of course, I will say these will be fully fledged podcasts when I get to them chronologically in the future. So, obviously after I got through the classic series, I get to the new series, and they'll be covered with guests and what have you. These are just little quickie mini episodes for me. Also the new format, and I love the new format in my opinion. The new format obviously getting rid of the round robins and replacing it with a knockout tournament whereby every robot gets at least 2 battles, and I really like that because that means that you don't see one robot go and then disappear, Hobgoblin, and as a result we get to see them fight again, get the chance to redeem themselves, hence the redemption round, and you get to see a lot more battles. It's great. It's just brilliant to see. I mean, actually, maybe about the same amount of battles now I think about it, but regardless, it feels like you're getting more content, even though it might be about the same amount you got previously, and it's more entertaining because you get to see the competitors a bit more. One thing I didn't like about the show instantly was the editing. The editing was a little bit skew-whiff. It did sometimes occasionally show the stats board twice, and for some reason they would show the stats board not after the first round, but in the second round, which is really weird, not in the first round. And the intro was really calm, which was really odd to me. I don't know why they made it so calm. And then the episode just suddenly started with Dara and Angela. And I'll admit, going into the first battle, I honestly didn't know the show had started, because you have the peaceful bit, you have Dara and Angela talking, and it's just like, oh, hi Bae-hemeoth, I guess we're starting the battles now. There was no kind of intro to the teams or anything, it was just, alright, fair enough. They didn't really explain the format properly, even though I did know about the format beforehand, and they did sort of hint at it before. But I think the new format is very easy to get used to, and thankfully it beats the round robin, so there you go. The editing, as usual, and the arena, once again, didn't work properly. It got broken in the first match. Alex, the Hunted, was there for pretty much all the episodes, and he told me that the first battle ever filmed, which was the first battle of this heat, Donald Thump, Bae-hemeoth, and Sabretooth, that was the battle he was talking about where the arena broke, and he said it's broken many other times in the series, so this will not be the first time. And considering the next heat, I'm not surprised if it breaks 50 times. With Aftershock and Carbide alone making up the numbers from last series. But that's the major changes, obviously. Obviously down to 30 robots and not 40. A little bit disappointing. I was kind of hoping to maybe add some more robots in, and maybe if this structure is more successful, they might increase the numbers, but the BBC are a bit tight like that, so you never know. But anyway, on to the actual robots, and we'll start with Bae-hemeoth. They actually won a series! Oh my god, Bae-hemeoth actually won a series. I'm so happy for Aunt Pritchard and the Pritchard boys and just everyone on that team. It's been 19 years since that tiny little, weedy little first entry with their bucket scoop powered by a SodaStream bottle, back when SodaStream was a thing, and it had "Eat Me" written on it. It was really crude, it was tiny, all they did was lift and push their opponents into the PPZ and then just forget about them. Now it's actually, they got the axe. They didn't really use the axe, unfortunately. They didn't have the axe attachment, but hopefully they might get some use of it in the grand final. We don't know. But, I don't know anyway. But Bae-hemeoth, really well controlled in this heat. I really think that's what got them through, because in every other series there was always a small mistake they made. Well, in Series 8, I think, personally, they did as well as they could have. It just unfortunate against Carbide. And in Series 9, obviously, the incident that they keep reminding about, which, I'm sure Ant wants to forget that by now. They keep reminding him of it in case he didn't realise he was on an internet sensation. They keep hammering that in. But one thing I didn't like though about Bae-hemeoth is the fact that they kept talking constantly about Bae-hemeoth's pedigree, and I know Bae-hemeoth's a good robot, but please, it's not they did as much as like Razor. Just shut up about it. I mean, hell, the bigger brother team are in this, and you never even talk about him. But apart from that, Bae-hemeoth, it was really well driven, really fast, just as good as last year, if not better driven, I think. And it was back in Series 8, where I think it was just very unlucky. This time, it went the full mile and won a heat, which was really nice to see. Donald Thump. Donald Thump was A thing, yes, of course, the only satirical robot maybe in here. Chain push to Brexit wasn't allowed, but we got Donald Thump at least. And we didn't get to see Nigel Barrage due to weight limits, but I know it was a purple robot based because UKIP, obviously. And Donald Thump was so disappointing. I love the design, I absolutely hands down love James, the team member. He is great, he'll make Robot Wars great again. He is awesome, he was just really into the role, his Trump impression is great, my Trump impression is just doing Carmen, yeah, get a bit of the world, that's all I do. It's not a very good accent. It's like me with a cold, but or my Eric Cartman with a cold, more likely. But Donald Thump was very unfortunate. Their weapon looked so good in the first battle, and then they just died out of nowhere. And then obviously in the second round, they couldn't use the weapon. The robot was kind of having problems throughout, and the Swarm battered them. Well, Blender battered them really. The Swarm didn't batter them too much. But Donald Thump, it was such a shame not to see them do more. But you know what? For a satirical robot, and particularly based off something that everyone hates, especially in a lot of people in this country just hate, that guy, it's really nice to see something funny come out of it, and something positive and joking, and I really hope it either comes back next year, either with Donald Trump again, or maybe another satirical robot. I would love to see something to do with the other politics. I mean, obviously they can't do British politics, because the BBC doesn't like bias against British politics, but hell, there must be something else they can do, or maybe just bait Donald Thump, and maybe get Nigel Barrage in this time, you never know. Then we had Sabretooth, with Gabe clearly on something this entire heat. I don't know what it was. I don't know if he wanted to use out for blood because of Aftershock beating him up last year, but this year he was all out. A little bit obnoxious, in my opinion. Not too much. I'm like, oh god, shut up. In more cases, occasionally I was like a little bit exacerbated by watching him, especially in the Apocalypse fight. I mean, Gabe's cool and all, but my god, in this heat, he came off slightly obnoxious, which is really a shame, really, because I'm not the biggest fan of Sabretooth, to be honest with you. But this design, it was a hit and miss design for me, because it looks nice. It wasn't as cool looking as the Series 9 version. I like that industrial look a bit more on it. But the Series 10 version was very safe looking, that kind of octagon-shaped robot, with the two wheels once again invertible. Nothing really too outstanding. The drum never worked. I mean, the drum worked. I think the only time it really worked properly throughout most of the battle was the Swarm battle, where it needed it the most, obviously. But it just didn't work, and it was just annoying seeing bits of it falling off. Like Donald Thump managed to break the panels, something fell off the drum in one of the battles. It was just really annoying to see it not work, and I would have seen it done better. But I'm not a drum spinner myself fan of them really. But they got third place in the heat. They're still eligible for the grand final potentially. Hopefully, if they can get the teething problems out of the way, I'd like to see them actually cause some damage. Nice to see. Then we obviously have Apollo. Apollo coming back, reigning champions of Series 8, and then coming overall 6th. Thereabouts, 5th or 6th in Series 9. This time they came back, beefed up the outside of it, looks brand spanking new, the electronics are better, and you could tell the improvements were there, because this robot was really competitive and really great. Clearly, this was a robot that was meant to fight BAMOff in the Heat final, because they were the two outstanding robots in this Heat. Which the other two robots we'll get to, and Donald Trump was a bit of a disappointment, but definitely these two are the best, and Apollo, once again, on form. Love seeing Alan in this time. We've seen Dave, obviously, quite a lot, Dave Young, but Alan Young, who's been on the technical side in Series 8 and 9, finally got to be on the show, ordered around by his younger brother, and it was great. I mean, Apollo is a great robot. It's got that really big cheese effect where it likes to flip itself over a lot. I know Vote Saxon said that in his review, and I'm blatantly copying that, but you know what, it is true, and that's probably ultimately why they didn't win, because while Apollo can get the good flips in, they're vulnerable around the back because of the ground clearance, and also the flipping. The flipping is the biggest problem. BAMOff does it occasionally, but Apollo is more guilty of doing that, so that's probably the reason why they'll end up losing. But Apollo, great team. Hopefully they can at least make a dent in the 10-way rumble. I have no idea, but they've got Sabretooth there, and they've beaten Sabretooth once, and provided that Sabretooth doesn't go after them straight away. We don't know who the other 8 robots are, though, so everything's all to play at this point. Then, of course, we had the Swarm. The Swarm, hands down my favourite robot of this heat, next to BAMOff and Apollo. They were the stars of the show. Everyone wrote him off as being a joke robot. Everyone wrote him off as being weak and feeble and small and light. That Blender brought it home. And I think personally that's what they should have done. I mean, they're entering King of Bots with basically a wedge and then 3 different blenders. I think they should have done that for a Robot Wars personally, but I can understand why with the new Series 1 bringing in King of Bots. Hopefully they'll come back in Series 11, if there is a Series 11. They should probably not keep Sky. I mean, actually, the Wedge one was okay. Sky in its Wedge form was quite good. The Flapper one was useless. Duck was cute. Rubber Duck was cute, but didn't really do anything. And Pincer, I never have pronounced it. Hands down, the most useless bot on the entire thing. Because at least Sky got underneath some robots occasionally. The Flapper form, the one with the tyres, was useless. But yeah, it just didn't do anything. I mean, Rubber Duck at least almost flipped over Donald Thump, but Blender took out Donald Thump, got some nice damage on Bae-hemeoth and Apollo, and Sabretooth was the only robot I think they didn't really do any damage to that badly. But the Swarm are so cute. The only problems I have with them is, again, obviously because of the size of them, I think they should have made it more Crackers and Smash weight limits, where having 2 middleweights is better than having 4 lightweights, I feel. But they were very fun. They fanned out everywhere, getting the opponents really confused, almost hitting the ceiling, which is hilarious. And the only thing I don't like at the moment was the fact that, well, the team are great, but the synergy wasn't always there, mainly because of the effectiveness of the robots. Blender and Sky in its Wedge form were the 2 most useful robots together, I felt, because Sky used to get underneath some of the robots, and Blender was the most destructive and caused damage. That made it much better. And the sad thing is the other 2 didn't really provide much help, so they ended up being fodder. And these obviously needed at least 2 robots to survive, and usually it was Blender and Sky that would be the last 2. But there was a funny bit with Rubber Duck getting helped by Sky onto the flipper and getting self-righted. That was pretty cute seeing, but that was the only bit of synergy I could ever see with them. Most of the time they were just scattered around doing their own thing, and it did hinder their ability to be effective. But I think this team is great. I love Ian Watts, I love Bigger Brother. Shame Orte suffered some problems a lot and wasn't allowed in Series 9, but honestly, if they stick with a Swarm, I wouldn't be that fussed. I just kind of wish they'd make more of the Blenders, or at least maybe one that's a bit more effective, like a flipper, like a middleweight flipper and a Blender. Like, combine have a Blender, make them middleweights like Crackers and Smash. I think you could be onto a winner, personally. They could be the best cluster bot ever. And then, of course, finally was Apocalypse. Hands down, the most unfortunate robot in this heat, because they were against a lot of good robots. They were an underdog from the start, having Apollo and Bae-hemeoth in the same heat. They've even fought Bae-hemeoth, obviously. And obviously having experienced Sabretooth. Really, the Swarm and Donald Thump, the only 2 robots I think they could have had a go at, and never fought Donald Thump either. Apocalypse was just, in its first battle, didn't do anything. In the second battle, really got its first opening minute or so, and then the Fog of Doom happened. They lost train chains and they lost motors. They smoked out twice in both their battles. It was very unfortunate. I love the grabbing device. My advice personally would be to get rid of the hammer and replace it with some kind of flipper. Combine it with something like Shockwave's scoop that goes 360 and have the grabbers. I think that would be a very good effective way of controlling the robots. But instead, it ended up being sort of a lackluster performance. It was a very shame, because I liked the design of it and I thought it was going to be a dark horse, but these things go and you lose out. Highlights from the first round weren't that great. I mean, the first battle with Sabretooth, Donald Thump and Bae-hemeoth was just them driving around and hitting each other occasionally. Donald Thump was one that caused Sabretooth to ultimately lose because they couldn't sell right after doing a double KO with Bae-hemeoth. That was pretty impressive. In the second battle, obviously, Apollo, the Swarm and Apocalypse, seeing Rubber Duck go flying was absolutely amazing. Apocalypse just kind of dawdled around and ended up being flipped over and died on the flame pit, so that wasn't very good. Seeing Donald Thump's weapon not working was a massive disappointment in the next round, and ultimately the Swarm just swarmed him and ripped off the president's face. That was very, very unfortunate. And then, of course, obviously Apocalypse was winning in the first half, and then Sabretooth managed to slam him against the wall. That was a very good slam by that team. Really, really good. It shows you how much power that robot has. For a 2-wheel drive spinner, you wouldn't think it has that much power. Like, I couldn't imagine Carbide having that much power in comparison. I can imagine Aftershock maybe, but not Sabretooth. I was not expecting Sabretooth that much power, so I'll give them credit. Apollo against against Sabretooth was mostly Tom and Jerry levels of antics, because Sabretooth just spent most, after the drum stopped working in the first 5 seconds, which is a common occurrence in this entire heat, Apollo just ended up chasing Sabretooth around the arena for a full minute and a bit before getting him right near the arena and flipping him out in a really awkward flip, like a really weird angle. And I was hoping Sabretooth would get stuck on top of the wall, but they ended up falling slightly off, and I heard that Alex said that it was very hard for them because they were stuck on the wall they lowered down, so they had to nervously get someone to take the roof of the link out and deactivate it. A very funny flip, though. BAMOff and the Swarm was just an absolutely fun battle. My second favourite battle of the heat, besides the heat final. BAMOff and the Swarm, it was how controlled BAMOff was, and actually how far Blender went after taking that massive hit on the scoop, and actually damaging the scoop a little bit, which was quite impressive for them. The other robots didn't really stand a chance. Sky went out of the arena. Rubber Duck didn't really do much, and neither did Pinzer. Pink Pinzer also got flipped over at some point. It wasn't surprising because Pinzer gets flipped over in every battle. And yeah, BAMOff just was really well controlled, really stylized, and really just beat the living hell out of the Swarm. And unfortunately, the Swarm also got beaten by Sabretooth because they didn't make it into the final 3, which is such a shame. Such a shame, but then again, Sabretooth's a better robot, and the drum was actually working for a bit longer than they should have, so that didn't help. And it actually was the only time I think Blender ever broke down, so it got tortured. Blender's wheels tires started falling off. I think it was a nightmare. Its weapon stopped working. It wasn't doing very well. But it's all about that final. It's all about the heat final, and my God, that flip from BAMOff at the very end was amazing. Just launching him and the momentum pushes him into the pit. But aside from that ending point, this was my favourite heat final of the reboot series for one major reason. It was nice and controlled, 2 very well controlled robots, 2 really great flippers, 2 great experienced roboteers, very back and forth. There was no point where I felt like one robot was dominating the entire thing. It was domination, shared domination, I guess that's the word I'd describe it as. Some robots, first half it was definitely Apollo. Then BAMOff pushed him into the CPZ, and Apollo couldn't self-fire, and they couldn't see, and they did a BAMOff from last series where they had to jump onto the plexiglass to even see what the hell the robot was doing. It was amazing, it was great, and it was fun to watch. This battle was probably the most highlighted things, and this is why I love Robot Wars. Robots that are well controlled, going against each other in a little duel. Absolutely fun to watch, and a real blast, to be honest. It was amazing. And honestly, Apollo, while they lost, I feel like they put up a very good fight. It was a great battle. And hell, as I said, just along with Sabretooth, they still have a chance in the 10-way rumble. Again, we don't know who are the other 8 robots in the 10-way rumble, but I wish Apollo all luck. And overall, what would I give this episode? Now, I'm on the hardcore podcast for this heat. I give it a 9. In retrospect, I probably would lower that to maybe a 7.5. Not because I don't think it was bad, because I think some of the battles in the first half weren't that interesting. I think it started getting really fun when the Swarm and Donald Thump started. After that, I felt like all the battles were entertaining to some degree. And I forgot the spikes got launched out of the arena. That was just launched into orbit. I don't know if that's a new obstacle or they just fucked up, but wouldn't surprise me either way. They got the Fog of Doom, which is shit. But I'll explain that on the other podcast too. Well, why that robot was obstacle is stupid. Might as well just hit the control off on for 10 seconds. Don't cover it in smoke and whatever. It's rubbish. But yeah, so BAMOff won this heat overall. It feels good for me to say that. I've not said that since I did my podcast in Series 2 last year. That's weird to say. And Apollo took in second, and Sabretooth took in third. And then unfortunately the Swarm took 4th, so they don't get a chance to be in the melee. But Sabretooth and Apollo in the melee, and BAMOff for the grand final instantly. Overall, 7.5 out of 10 I give this. It was a great start. Possibly, I'm not sure if it beat Series 8's finale. I know they got better and better. Series 9's, Series 8's beginning, sorry. The first heat in Series 8 was great. The first heat of Series 9 was really fun with the Aftershock and Sabretooth and Jellyfish. And, it's Skype. And then, this one was a very strong heat. More in the second half than the first half, but there's some still highlights, especially again seeing Rubber Duck going flying was also the best highlight of the first half. And it's picked up from the Swarm and Donald Thump onwards. I think was a great heat. So, and overall, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. So, Yes, so that was me rambling along. If you enjoyed this episode, I'm surprised if you do, because I have spent nothing but rambling in this episode. Watch someone like Vote Saxon, who actually puts effort into his editing and scripting. I feel like I'm just messing about here, but then again, that's all my podcast for you. What do you expect? So I'm Jim Dramatic, signing off.